B12. So this is a particular vitamin. So somebody's asked, is there anything known about making sure you have enough vitamin B12 in your diet? And they've asked specifically to help with a symptom such as neuropathy.
So B12 is important for red blood cell production, but also for myelin, which is something that coats nerve cells, which is perhaps the link with neuropathy for B12 deficiency. It's actually very rare to have B12 deficiency from diet-induced reasons. Typically, doctors would look for a medical reason if this was the case, not necessarily associated with lupus. But foods that are enriched in B12 are typically ones that you wouldn't find in a vegetarian or vegan diet, such as dairy, eggs, and meat. So these are high in B12. So if you're consuming these, then typically you'll have very good levels of B12. It's only really in very strict vegan diets that you'd perhaps see a deficiency. But again, this is rare.
Okay, excellent. And you mentioned that a deficiency of vitamin B12 is rare. Is it something that's more common with people who have lupus? Do you know?
So the biggest medical reason for B12 deficiency is something called pernicious anemia, and that itself is an autoimmune disease. And typically, when you have an autoimmune disease, you're perhaps more susceptible to another autoimmune disease. But in the case of lupus, it's not actually something that's specifically associated with an increased risk. B12 deficiency isn't something that you typically have a more common defect for lupus. So the rarity of it, again, they would look for another medical explanation if this was the case in lupus.